Well, hello again. Hello again. How are you? This is Gerald and Yvette from Gerald and Yvette Ministries. It's a very different time for us to broadcast, but we wanted to share. We're very excited. We just earlier today pushed the button on publishing our story together, our first book together, and it is now released and ready for pre-order. We wrote a book together about our story. So many people watch us, so many people see our broadcast, they hear a little bit about our testimony, but we wanted to really release the story in a total package. So the story that we have shares a lot about Gerald's upbringing. You want to share your part? Because the book is bent, but not broken.
A lot of it is the beginning of identity, knowing who you really are, and how the enemy really attacked me at a young age, and the obstacles that I had to come out of to fight, not even knowing what I was fighting, generational stuff, molestation, a lot of the things that put me in a place when I got older into perversion, put me into lust and perversion, and it was hard because growing up you really didn't know. I really didn't get into it until I was an adult with deliverance and understanding what I was fighting. And then I was, really didn't want to fight because it was part of my character, my personality. It literally grows up with you. And so all of those things, the addictions and the habits and depression and suicidal thoughts, and not even knowing what those things were, and just telling the story of, the day-to-day battles with those things. And, people say, well, you can't really, does it happen while you're in church? You can't, if you save, listen, I felt like I was saved and I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I was still bound.
And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of people that have marital problems, that a lot of people struggle with relationships, it really doesn't have as much to do with the relationship or the spouse.
Right.
It has a lot to do with things that have happened as you're growing up, things that have happened in your household. So when Gerald and I were having trouble, my first response was, if you love me, just stop doing it. If you care about me, if you care about our kids, if you love God, just stop. But one of the things that happened in our journey, the journey that we share, is when God healed me and I allowed God to heal me, He showed me things that had happened to Gerald. He allowed me to have compassion for his experiences. So the book also shares my perspective concerning him when he was, gone, when he was considered a prodigal because he was reckless, because he was gone, because we were separated. And a lot of people want to know, did you ever want to give up? Mm-hmm. Did you ever consider giving up? Absolutely. There were times that I wasn't working toward us getting back together. It was just too hard. I didn't know. I didn't understand. So it tells a lot about my journey to a place where now our ministry shows that I was able to fight for the relationship. I was able to love him through it. I was able to support his deliverance, but it wasn't always that way. So many stories are one-sided, one person needing deliverance or the other person loving them. But this is our story, how we met. We met in high school, so it shares pieces of our love story from our beginnings of a friendship, and then really the crumble, and then ultimately reconciliation. And because a lot of people need to know reconciliation is real. Reconciliation takes work. Reconciliation is God's way of doing things. So it's been such a joy to share on our broadcast. It's been such an amazing joy to share on our YouTube channel, but to put it all together. And God said, that book is bent but not broken. You didn't break. Satan tried to kill what I was putting together. And, between the work that God did in us individually and the work that we put in with God together, we now have a marriage ministry, mentoring, counseling, all of those things. So we put some things together, and we have an amazing writing team. So we were able to, have our book, and it is released today. And so we're excited about it, and we didn't want to go to bed without sharing it with some of you that are still up. Some of you on the Pacific Coast that are late night people. It's late night for us, but we wanted to share and let people know it is available on our website. It will be available in a few days, even on Amazon, but it's already available for pre-order. If you order from us, we will be signing. You will have a signed book. They are $20. The books are $20. They're on our website, and we will be signing the copies that are sold before April 10th.
Yep. And make sure, listen, this book it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of things that went on to birth this book. Yes. And so for this book to be birthed,
yes, thank you,
it's amazing. It's truly amazing. We've had prophetic words that have spoken it, and it's literally, and when I say God restores all, yes, he brings everything back. He's literally bringing everything back. And let me tell you, he's not a respecter of persons. Because if he did it for us, he'll do it for you. It's what you are willing to do. It's what you're willing to do. Because God is not going to make you do anything, but he gives you a choice. Yes, and it's will you do it? It's do you want to do it? Mm-hmm. And so whatever he's asking you to do, and whatever he's telling you to do, it's just being obedient and doing it. Because out of it, you don't even understand what happens. Because if she didn't pray and do what God asked her to do, would it have unlocked an opportunity for me to come home? Would it have unlocked an opportunity for me to be safe while I was, in the streets, homeless, and all of these above things? I don't know, but I know because she was obedient and she did it, she gave me a chance to actually come back and be able to now, do the same for her. Amen. And so it's amazing. It's just amazing.
It's awesome. It's our love story. It's our gift back to people who have been supportive in our ministry so that they can have something to hold, to be able to hold on to. It's the opportunity for people who desire to be married so that they can look and see what type of work a strong Christian marriage is capable of, right, is made up of. It's our ability to be able to say, if you already have a strong marriage, here is how you can help others. In terms of the way it's written, it really shows how to, encourage restoration, to encourage people to trust God, believe God, support the other person. And it has the pieces where God's role, we didn't understand our individual roles for so long, that God was speaking to us and giving us instructions, but he was speaking to us from his word. And so as his word is spoken to us, I didn't understand being a helpmeet. He didn't understand being a priest, prophet, and king. So we were missing some of our instructions. And so along the way, we truly learned our roles as God would have them. And we're still learning our roles every day. So it's our story. We're excited to share it. We'll even take questions if anybody has questions, because we're transparent. We just wanted to share that it was finally done. We're excited about that. We're thrilled that it's going to be available. We're taking information. We're taking questions. We're wanting you to celebrate with us, because we have known that we were going to release a book together. You all know that I have my book, Help for the Helpmeet, but we knew we were going to write a book together about our love story, because I told Gerald when we got married, a strong marriage has almost nothing to do with love. That it's about work, it's about dedication, it's about commitment, it's about covenant, and he didn't understand at the time.
All I used to say is, man, it's gonna be all right, I love you. And she'd look at me and like, this is not going to work, because I wasn't really putting in the work. I just was using the lip service of, I love you. I love you. And she knows that I deeply love her, but are you willing to put in the work? It's the same thing. I love God, but what was I really willing to put in the work that he was asking me to do? Asking me to live right, asking me not to do these different things that I was doing.
Wow.
And what is he asking you? That, you say you love him, and I said I love him, and I mean, I say I love God. And if you ask anybody, that I say they're a Christian, they're going to say, I love God. But when it boils down, when the rubber hits the road, are you willing to do what God asks you to do? Because God always tell me to go back to Jesus. I always go back to Jesus. It's like all he wanted to do is what the Father say do. Yes, whatever the Father asked him to do, he was willing to do it. And it was a time when he asked, could this cup pass? But he said what?
Not my will, but thy will be done. And really, that's what marriage is all about. Not my will, but thy will be done. Not the things that we want, but what does your spouse need? What does God ask you to do? Yeah. What is God wanting you to do? So we're allowing people to ask questions. If you have questions about the book, we're thrilled about it. We're excited about it. We want you to know that we appreciate and understand. What should you do when you stand and your spouse is double-minded? Well, the same thing that you've heard us in our broadcast share. If God tells you to do something, then he's also going to give you instructions, but it takes healing. It takes understanding spiritual warfare. It takes deliverance. It takes patience. It takes unconditional love, but it's not impossible. All things are possible through Christ. So one of the things that God required of me was to truly understand who Gerald was, even beyond his double-mindedness, even beyond his battle with depression, even beyond his battle with addictions or perversion. It wasn't that those things were him. It was the enemy was operating through him. It wasn't who he is. It was the spirit that Satan was using to hinder him, hinder his life, hinder his destiny, hinder my destiny. So I couldn't continue to look at his behavior. I couldn't continue to look at the things that he was doing. Although those things were hurting me, although those things were difficult, although it was very trying, I couldn't continue to say that's who he was. God said, that's not who my son is. What he said was that's a spirit, and those spirits can be cast out. Those spirits can be overcome with patience, with love, and with understanding of spiritual warfare. So it's not so much that whether or not it's double-mindedness or perversion or adultery. All things are a spirit, and every name has to bow to the name of Jesus.
And that was very important, what she said, patience and love.
Yes.
Because the person that is going through it really doesn't want to be that person. But I was so bound, and I couldn't get out of it. And I was embarrassed, ashamed, all of those things. And with over a period of time, the walls start coming down.
Jesus.
It's like you having to do something until you start seeing a reaction. As my wife said something, had a prayer, pray it until you see it, and when you see it, protect it.
My God.
It's that place. It's keep praying until you see it, because if God told you to, if God asked you to do it, and God says that this is my son, and I need you to pray for my son. And that's what she was doing. She didn't know why she had to pray and what she was praying for. She was just being obedient to actually do it. And so being patient when I came home, and still now having to actually see it in front of it. No, I didn't come home totally delivered, clean, set free, and everything. I still had residue. I still had some issues. I still had some problems. And it took now diligence. It took some prayer. It took some prayers. It took some, good talkings. It took a lot of stuff to still, and we still have to do it. It's still a process. It's still working, and I appreciate it, because what happens out of it, I became free to a place where I can tell her my deepest hurts, my deepest wounds, my deepest thoughts. Because for a long period of time, I was embarrassed to even share my deepest thoughts, my deepest feelings.
True.
And so when you're dealing with that, you put a wall up, or you set yourself up to a place where I just wanted to be alone. And that's what the enemy always wants.
Yes,
he wants you to separate. So now you're not, it's only 1,000. But when you linked up with another person or your spouse, it's 10,000. You have 10,000 angels working on your behalf because of what you're dealing with. And I knew what my calling was. I knew who I was, but the enemy was so persistent in trying to destroy me, to destroy my character, to destroy my personality, to destroy my physical body. He was trying to destroy me at a young age. And so what Yvette is talking about, and when she's saying that being patient and understanding what God is saying, you have to be patient and understand what God is asking you to do, because there is a reason. The mantle that is on that person's life that God is asking you to intercede for is very important.
It's important to God. And someone asked a great question: did I heal completely before Gerald came home? And I guess I would say healing is ongoing and healing is a lifestyle. So because certain things were still happening, I teach people in my webinars and in my counseling that, like with forgiveness, when the act that is hindering you is ongoing, you have to continue to forgive. Forgiving once is fine for what happened before, but forgiveness is something you have to continue to do, especially if the behavior has continued. So because the difficulty in our relationship continued even after he came home, I had to continue to forgive. I had to continue to heal because things were happening that continued to hurt me. So healing is ongoing, but I had to put in a lot of work in terms of healing to be able to handle treating him like nothing ever happened before he came home, because we were separated multiple times, and because of that he would leave again, and that was because those first times that he came home I wasn't healed enough to handle what God was asking me to do, how God was asking me to forgive and continue to forgive. I was getting angry, I was bitter, I was frustrated. So when I was healed enough to treat him like nothing ever happened, when I was healed enough to work with him through his deliverance, then he came home and I was able to continue with my healing. But yes, healing is ongoing.
Yes.
With the number of years that we struggled through our relationship, struggled through things, I continue to have to declare over myself to forgive the things that have happened, to trust God and what he's asked us to do. So healing is ongoing. So I don't think any person is completely healed of anything. I think healing is a way of life. It's something you choose to do. It's very, very intentional.
Because the enemy will always try to bring back up that same thing that'll put you back into a trauma area. And if you don't protect it, and if you don't protect yourself, if you don't feel yourself, and you don't get those wounds healed and in a place where you know that the enemy, because it's just like deliverance. If you want to keep your deliverance, you got to keep filling yourself back up. You got to protect yourself in season and out of season, because the enemy will come back to try to kill, steal, and destroy. Sure. He's going to use the tactics that worked in the past. And so if you understand and you know what your triggers were, what the things that you had to be delivered from, and what things that caused you to be wounded, now you're able to do it. Because I tried. This is good. I tried her when I came home the last time, because I wanted to see if it was going to be authentic. I knew her trigger points. I knew what I could say to make her go back into that old place, and I would do it just to see if she was going. And I know it was the enemy using me to see if I can just leave again. But she was doing it. She wasn't doing it. She was being, like loving me like nothing ever happened. I couldn't understand that. So that's when I knew that she was different. I knew that God had did something different, but God had already been talking to me about the heart. He was talking to me about my heart, but I didn't understand that he had already worked on her heart to actually love someone when they wasn't even lovable, caring for someone when they didn't even care for themselves. And that was me. I just didn't. And so watching her walk it out every single day, it gave me strength to actually walk out my deliverance every single day. Because if I know she can be delivered from all of the stuff that I did, and I tried to destroy her, literally tried to destroy every aspect of her, and she stood there. She stood like a pillar. And yes, that pillar waved and bobbed and weaved, but it just did not fall. It's the bent but not broken. It bent, but she didn't break. And so now I understand that now where we are and the walk that I had to walk, yes, I might have bent, but the enemy couldn't break me. He tried to kill me. He tried to destroy me.
Jesus.
But God saved me. He protected me all throughout the whole way, that no real hurt, harm, or danger. A lot of the stuff that I did it on my own. It wasn't something that God said, okay, I chose the wrong path. I chose to do this, but now I choose to do it God's way. I want to do it God's way. No longer do I have to. I want to do it God's way. And so that's the way, the lifestyle that we're having to live now is I want to please God.
Yes.
I want to please God. So if God is asking you to do something, it's the place of, I just want to please you, God. I just want to please you. Not that I don't love my spouse, but I want to please you more than I want to do that.
Yes.
I want you more than because if I know I please you, you'll give me the desires of my heart. And you already know the desires of my heart. But my desires has to line up with your desires. My wants have to line up with your wants. And so out of this testimony, out of this marriage, it's that place of where we are now. Mm-hmm. It's the I want to. And I'm telling you, just like you sit here looking at me, God told us when we got here that I want you to do this ministry, and it's going to bring some help and hope. That's the help. I'm the hope. The one thing that you didn't think was going to come alive, the one thing that you didn't think that could be help, the one thing that you didn't think would ever be who God said it would be. I'm that person. So he was like, I just want you to be able to tell your testimony. I want you to be able to tell people that it is possible.
It's very possible.
It takes work to get to that. It takes a different frame of mind. You can't walk into it. You can't walk into it with a carnal mindset. You can't walk in with your natural mindset. You got to walk in it with the mind of Christ. You got to walk in it with the understanding that I have died to myself and I no longer live for myself, but I live for Christ. And that God is going to give me every single thing that I need every single day. I'm not talking about I got it today and I don't need it tomorrow. But you're going to need what you need today, all of what you need today, and all of what you're going to need tomorrow and every single day after that.
That's why that's why the name of the book is Bent But Not Broken, but it's Help and Hope for Marriage Restoration. If you want your marriage to be strong, you have to believe and trust God. You may not even be able to trust the person, but you have to be able to trust God. And someone asked, what was the thing that caused you to stop believing what the enemy was saying and start believing what God said about you? That was a good question.
Once I stopped being ashamed, because being ashamed causes you to listen to the enemy.
What stopped you from being ashamed?
Telling it.
Okay.
Opening up. Just opening my mouth and telling, and the one thing that had me bound was shame, the shame, the pornography and the lying and all of those things. When I start telling you the truth about those things, shame, the devil couldn't use it to shame me. He couldn't hold me to that place of shame, and shame will keep you in a place where
bondage.
He just talks to you. You better not say that. You got to tell her because you know how she's going to respond.
Right.
And so that's the voice that you listening to. And all of a sudden, and God is saying, the Holy Spirit is saying, just go ahead and tell her because the truth will set you free.
Yes,
you know the scripture saying the truth will set you free. But shame is so strong and such a powerful thing that it'll have you bound for years.
And I'll tell you from my perspective, one of the things that God asked me to do was treat him like a king. And in order for me to do that, because I had been hurt, because I had been embarrassed, because I didn't believe that he had a desire for me. I didn't believe he had a desire for our relationship or our family. So God had me declaring who he is. He had me declaring that he's a kingdom man. He had me declaring awesome things about him, and to teach and to declare anything that he would speak to me, and then to look up scriptures because I had to strengthen myself. And I found out when he came home that the reason for that was because I had to start treating him like a king. And what happened with that is because I was treating him like a king, he started to feel like a king. So then he didn't feel like he was going to be embarrassed or I was going to cause shame. It became a safe place. We created a place of peace in our home. And all of this is in our book, Bent But Not Broken. But God told me to create a place of peace and to treat him like a king no matter what he said. So the difficult part was treating him that way before I saw a king. Wow. Treating him that way before his behavior changed. But that's what caused him to be more comfortable telling me things. He was telling me things that in all actuality embarrassed me. In all actuality kind of hurt my feelings.
And that's why shame will keep you locked in. Because I knew if I told her that I was hooked on pornography, I'm masturbating, I'm lying, I'm doing, I knew what it was going to do to her. If I'm to tell her and I'm sitting here watching pornography and I'm masturbating, now you're talking about self-esteem, you're talking about your heart, you're talking about your feelings, you're talking about your intimate relationship. All of those things start running through my mind, and then it's like, no, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be quiet. I ain't going to tell her what I see and nothing. I'm just going to be just quiet, and I'm going to deal with it. And dealing with it, the enemy is laughing at us. He was laughing at me. And when I say he was laughing at me, because what was happening, I was getting worse. Jesus. I was getting worse to a place where now I'm like, I just want to leave. I just want to get away. And so I'll run. I already had a spirit of running. So I just ran away from the problem. I ran away from the situation. And then that just, escalated to something different, because now I'm out of my covenant. And so now it's just, the enemy was just like laughing. And so what's the situation is when I start telling you my vision.
Yes.
What I'm seeing. I was like, time out, babe, time out. I got pornography. We could be talking and images will pop up in my head. And for a long time they were doing it, but I was never saying anything. And so I had to start telling her, because if I didn't tell her, I have a movie going on in my head, and she wouldn't even understand and wouldn't even know anything about it. And so I would be missing half of the conversation that she's talking about, because I'm so occupied with what's going on in my mind and in my head.
And the other thing was, there was a lot of lying between us. He would tell me a lot of lies, where he was going, with who he was talking to, things that were happening in our finances, things that were happening with his job. He would quit jobs, lose jobs, and there were just so many other things. And all of this is in the book. We're very, very transparent in the book. We share all, because God told us we had to share it all, no holds barred, let everything out, because he wants people to know that there are circumstances that look bleak, that look dead, and God is still the God that causes the dry bones to arise. And someone asked, what if this is something that the person has seen before, because they use the term at PK. Gerald's family, he comes from a long line of ministers, like 4 generations back of ministers. So it's not that he didn't grow up in the church or that he didn't know what was going on in the church, but he had still seen a lot of destruction, a lot of perversion in families, and we had to share some of that. And we were not inappropriate with other people, but you have to share. There were generational curses of perversion. Let's just say that. So the generational curses of perversion, we're trying to take over. We're trying to take our destiny, because that's what he saw. So yes, the enemy will work. And when you're dealing with generational curses, you've got to know. And I teach now spiritual warfare, because I had to learn spiritual warfare. I had to learn how to cancel generational curses. And God taught me a lot of that while we were separated, when I didn't know where he was. I had to hear God's voice. And what I realized is, once he came home, I was like, oh God, that's why you wanted me to declare, so that my heart would be softened when he would speak like that, when he would act a different way. And God would say, watch your face. God would say, watch your tone. And then he would feel comfortable. Or when we could see the generational curses kind of popping up in our conversations, I would know how to cancel out. Oh, that's the running man spirit. Oh, that's the spirit of rejection. So instead of me being upset that he was speaking to me a certain way, I would go in the other room and cancel the spirit of rejection. Oh, rejection, you're not going to have my king. You're not going to have my husband. You're not going to have my relationship. So I learned a lot of that through books, through studying. I mean, it was not easy, but we just want to share that it's not impossible. And then once our relationship got stronger, we would start to fight together. Because a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's easier for you because, he has a desire to do it. Well, he has a desire to do it now. Thank you, Jesus.
It wasn't like that for a long time.
And there's a whole area in my Help Me book that talks about a sanctified wife can sanctify a husband, or a sanctified husband can sanctify a wife. So the whole story really is, this truly a love story. When Gerald met me the first day he met me, and I shared this at a lot of the boot camps, he looked at me and he said, I don't know who you are, but I'm gonna marry you someday. So we truly have a love story, but the enemy knew what God was trying to do when he brought us together, and God marries for destiny. There was a destiny, there's a purpose, and when that happens, the enemy tries to put in a stronghold. The enemy tries to hinder. The enemy tries to break things up. And we get the opportunity to work with couples, and we really say, you know what, you all have a destiny, you all have a purpose. It may not be for marriage ministry, it may be, entrepreneurial ministry, it may be, pastoral ministry, it may be apostolic ministry, whatever it is, the purpose is. The enemy does not want you to have someone you're in covenant with, someone that you can come into agreement with. Yeah. And if he can take away your agreement, he takes away some of your power.
He's a covenant breaker. All he wants to do is break covenant. Jesus. He's been trying to break covenant since Genesis.
Come on.
I mean, that's all he wants to do. He wants to break covenant. He wants to break not just your relationship with your spouse, but your relationship with God. That's the main relationship that he's trying to break. As long as you don't communicate with God, he's fine. As long as you're not praying, he's fine. As long as you're not doing, understand when you're not getting any warfare.
Jesus, when you ain't doing anything.
When you ain't doing anything, why does he have to worry about it?
That's true.
And when you get into your feelings, because I used to get into my feelings, I'm like, man, bump that. I ain't praying for her. I'm mad right now. This is when I came back home, and I'm like, man, I'm mad. I done got into my feelings. And so God asked me to pray for her. I'm like, I'm in my feelings. Now I'm stubborn. The stubborn spirit came back because now I'm stubborn. I'm bullhead, and I'm arguing with God because I'm not going to pray for her. And I let that whole day go by without praying. And then the spirit of conviction fell upon me. And then, I'm a weeping prophet, so God start whipping me real hard. I go to crying, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm so sorry. I know I was disobedient. I know I was supposed to do this, and now I'm to a place where if God says roll over and pray, I'm rolling over and pray because God has a plan. It's a reason why he wants you to roll over and pray. It's a reason why she had to oil my pillows when I wasn't there. Pray over that pillow until she saw me laying in that bed. Praying over the clothes that I had in the closet until she saw me in them. Praying over the shoes until she saw me in them. Praying over the hats that's gonna cover my head. Jesus. That's gonna give me the peace of mind. That's gonna drop off. Just gonna stop me from operating in the spirit of depression. Stop me from operating in what I'm saying. These are the things. These are the strategies that God gave her for me when I wasn't there.
Jesus.
I wasn't there. I wasn't even trying to be there. She will call me and I will hang the phone up. Matter of fact, I'm hanging up a phone that she pays for. Seriously. So hanging up a phone that she pays for every month. Wasn't returning phone calls for a phone that she pays for every month. A normal person would have been, oh, you ain't gonna answer my phone. I turned the phone off. Whatever.
Except God didn't want that, and so.
And you asked, can I just turn the phone off?
Please.
I'm just gonna turn the phone off.
I'm turning everything off.
I don't need you to turn it off because you wouldn't be able to contact it. You wouldn't be able to send him the things that I need you to send. And she would send me emails. She would send me different things, and I wouldn't return them. But I was reading them. I was listening to the voicemails. I was listening to them. I just wasn't ready to return a phone call because I wasn't ready to deal with what I've done.
And I think what's important is that part right there. A lot of times there are things that God will ask you to do and you won't see results.
Yeah.
And the enemy
'Cause that
will
was
say
for a
you're
long
stupid.
time.
The enemy will say stop. Your friends will say you're stupid. Your friends will say stop. You know, sometimes even people in the church will say stop. Your flesh will want you to stop. But it's important for you to know there were a lot of things that God asked me to do that I saw no manifestation for years. I got to say that clearly. It was years before I saw manifestation of my prayers. That doesn't mean the prayers weren't changing things. It doesn't mean the prayers weren't breaking down the barriers. But because of a lot of the things that he had to do to get delivered, what God was showing me was there's a lot of things. There's a lot of generational curses. There's a lot of past mistakes. There's a lot of past trauma that had to be broken. That had to little by little. My prayers were chipping away at it. The deliverance, the declarations were chipping away at it. And because there was so much hindering him, because the enemy had such a stronghold on him, although I was praying and although I was powerful, what was happening, it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen right away.
It was because what she was doing, God was doing something in her.
Jesus.
He was doing something in her. He had to prepare her for when the door opens for me to come back. She would be ready. She would be willing, because all it is God just it's every day was a test. Are you willing to do this, regardless if you see it or not? If you see it or not, we operate on faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So that is the place. That's the place.
Wow.
Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And he tells me that now. Why are you doing it? And now I just got to the place where I'm like, okay, God, I don't have to, do all of these other things. I have to want to. So I have to want to live a new lifestyle for God. I have to want to keep my deliverance. I have to want to be a true son of God. I have to want to love my wife as Christ loved the church. I have to want to do these things now. He's not making me do anything. He gave me a choice. But now my choice is I want to please him. I want to be accepted in him. I want everything that he has for me, my family, and my generations to come. I want all of it. So whatever it's going to take, because I don't know what my obedience unlocks for my kids, for my grandkids, for my grandkids. All of that, I don't know. And so I just want to be obedient and actually be able to see the things that my wife was praying for. So we can say I'm a living example of what my wife has been praying, what she's been praying. And so God gave her an actual vision, a actual, what you call it?
Epistle.
There you go. A living epistle. That's not the word I want to use.
An actual what?
Of your prayers. A manifestation. A manifestation of the prayers because of the work she had to put in. Because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
It was definitely not easy, and we don't try to paint the picture that it was easy, because we want people to know it is work. We end all of our broadcasts with marriage works if you work it. Faith comes by hearing, but hearing by the word of God. But there's no faith that doesn't require work. Faith without works is dead. So you don't want dead faith. You got to have faith that's alive. You got to have faith that you're willing to work for. And someone said, how do you keep praying when you lose things like your home? I watched my car being pulled away out of the driveway. I listened to people who talked about foreclosure when I didn't even know that we were about to lose our house. I didn't even know we were in foreclosure because Gerald pretended to work and pretended to pay the mortgage, but he didn't have a job for months. So I get that there are things that are happening, but if God is telling you to do it, you have to be willing to give up everything to follow what God has asked you to do. I'm not saying that you just, you put yourself in harm's way, but there were things that, one thing that happened, I said, God, if we lose this house, What is it that I'm supposed to do? He said, I can get you another house. What I'm fighting for is his soul salvation.
Ooh.
Like you're talking about houses and cars, and I'm talking about delivering my son. Ooh. We're talking about two different things. So I had to fix my perception and my perspective, because once God told me that was his perspective, I was speaking English and he was basically speaking Spanish, because I'm like, God, I don't have any more money in the bank because I'm giving him money. You told me to give him a debit card when he doesn't have a job. And God was like, I can give you a promotion on your job. I can open the doors for opportunity. And honestly, that's what God was doing. He was opening the doors for opportunity. Things were lasting long. People were giving me things, but I was able to keep the lines of communication open with him and treat him like a king, so that he would have, which I didn't know at the time, he would have the ability to walk in the door proud. He would have the ability, and not with a spirit of pride, but with his head held high, because I treated him like he belonged there. I opened the door to him. And I promise you, this was the third time. Now, the first two times I treated him like garbage. I was like, where you been? What you been doing? Who you been talking to? What's going on? Let me see your phone. All of that. I did all of that. Yeah. But God said, that's not what I asked you to do. What I asked you to do is treat him like a king. What I asked you to do is leave him alone. What I asked you to do is let him have rest and peace when he comes to the house. Because God knew what he could handle at that time. And at that time, he couldn't handle a bunch of questions and a bunch of confusion and me putting weight on him. Eventually, as he grew and got delivered, he was able to do all of those things. And he's able to do all of those things now. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what God was doing. But a lot of times we have to understand his ways are higher than our ways.
Come on.
So he's going to ask us to do things, and we won't see what he means by being obedient. What do you mean by praying for something you don't see? He didn't give me a time frame. In fact, he never even promised me that our relationship would be restored.
That's good.
Never promised me our relationship would be restored. What he said was, I'll be pleased if you pray. This is my perfect will for you to pray. So yeah, there are going to be things that you lose. There are going to be things that are going to happen. And it was embarrassing. People in my family thought I was crazy. People in my church was like, what is your problem? He's gone. And they would ask, where is he? And I would have to say, honestly, I have no idea. The third time he left the state, wouldn't call me back. It was difficult. Would I wish this on my worst enemy? I wouldn't. But if I could tell someone to keep pressing, keep pushing, because he wanted a divorce and I was thrilled. I was like, here's the money. Go down to the court office, go to the courthouse and file the papers, because I was tired of praying. I was tired of being embarrassed. And God said, I don't care if he gets a divorce. I don't care if he files those papers. If you're asking me what I want you to pray. I want you to decree. I want you to declare. I don't want you to give up. Now, you can give up because you have grounds to give up, but I don't want you to. So I had to decide, that was I going to do what God wanted me to do, or was I going to do what I wanted to do? And it was not easy. It was tough, but I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did that, because of all the things we lost.
Yeah.
His spirit, his soul, his destiny, his purpose, now our family, our marriage, it was worth it, because the stuff that we lost can be replaced. God is replacing it as we speak. We still don't have all of the things that we owned before, but I have my marriage. We still don't own some of the things that we owned before, but I have my husband. I have my relationship. I've got my destiny. I've got my purpose. I've got more faith in God than I've ever had before, because I've seen what sticking to the prayers of God, the ways of God, I've seen what it can do. I know what it can do. And now I teach other people how to do it, how to stick it out, how to strengthen their marriage, how to prepare for marriage. Because your flesh does not want what God wants.
Your flesh is an enemy of God. Why would it line up? You start listening to your flesh, you're gonna find yourself going the opposite way of God.
Jesus.
Because God is going to put pressure on you.
Jesus.
It's gonna put pressure on your flesh. When your flesh start getting pressure, that's when you know you tapping into God. You know why? Because you're going from level to level and glory to glory, and in between there's a pressing that goes on, because you're gonna have new oil to get into the new place that you're going into. It's going to take some different type of strategy to get into the next place. You can't use your old strategies ways and be the old you and try to operate in something new. That's not what God is going to do. You can't stay in the first grade and doing first grade work and trying to get in the second grade. It doesn't work. Like even the educational system doesn't allow you to do that. In any other system, your skill level has to increase. As you mature, your skill level have to increase. And so that means your vocabulary of how you're speaking, how you're talking to your spouse, or because that's the one thing she's very articulate. But when she was speaking to me, if I felt like it was disrespectful,
Jesus,
she had to change it. Oh, you better change the way you say that. You better change the way you talking to me. I don't like the way you talking to me. And a lot of it, because I dealt with a spirit of offense. And so anything that came out of her mouth, I felt offended by it. So I would say, hey, you need to change the way you wanted to respond. In the early part of it, she would, she going to give her piece. And she going to say whatever she want to say. And then at the end, when I came back home for the last time, when things like that were happening, she would be at a peace, a calm place. So like, I'm sorry. What? You sorry? But the thing about it was, she had matured into a whole nother place. It was she had a whole nother anointing on her to be able to to be able to respond to me when I came back home.
Yes.
It was a new oil.
And I apologize. God had to teach me that even though I didn't feel I was disrespecting him, that all that mattered was if he felt disrespected, then all bets were off. Because I was like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. I let him in my house. Come on, I let him have a this, I let him have a that. And he said, the thing is, your measuring stick is not about whether or not you think you've disrespected him. Your measuring stick is whether or not he feels disrespected.
There it is.
So I had to realize, and I used to ask him, do you feel like I'm honoring you? And at first he would say no because of your facial expressions. And I'm like, look here. At first, and God was like, is that gonna help? No, that wasn't gonna help. So I had to realize, okay, if my facial expressions or my body language or my hand gestures or my choice of words, if he considered that disrespectful, then it was disrespectful and I needed to work on it. And I know I'm a strong woman. I have 3 college degrees. I owned a home. I drove a BMW. I was the epitome of the strong woman. But so I was taught in our culture, I don't have to deal with that. And I didn't, because people wonder, did I really need it? He didn't even have a job at the time. I didn't need him to be there, but I needed him to be there. It's different. And so the world would tell me I shouldn't put up with it, but I kept hearing God's voice. I kept hearing God say, I want him. I kept hearing God say, you as his helpmeet can bring him to me. You as his helpmeet has the authority to speak it into existence. I had to do what God asked me to do. Now, God wasn't gonna make me do it, but I was proud to do it. I was pleased that I was able to make God happy. And so it's all in the book, Bent But Not Broken. We wanted to get on because today is the day that it was finally, the button was pushed. Our amazing writing team is on. Dr. Katrina Foster is our amazing editor, and our writing coach extraordinaire, Jasmine Starks, is on. And we just had to give them a shout out. They did an amazing job helping us.
Thank you, ladies.
They wanted our voice to be heard, his voice to be heard, because it shares a lot about the things that he struggled with growing up that caused a lot. We deal with the repercussions of what happens when someone needs deliverance, but God is like, you just don't know what he's been through. You don't understand what he's gone through. You don't understand what's happening in his mind. And if you go and if you dig deeper, you'll have compassion for what he's dealing with. And honestly, that's what happened. And so they really helped us make sure that part of the story was told, because so many people are dealing with that.
The battle of the mind. Mm-hmm. Remember that.
Yes.
Just remember that when you sit in your situation, you're looking at it. Think about the battle of the mind. What you have in your battle in your mind, and the battle of the mind of the other person.
That's true.
And that's how the enemy tries to divide a wedge in
a
between
relationship.
in between the relationship, and that's what breaks your covenant.
So we want everyone to know. We want everyone to let people know our story is out. It's our love story. It's our story of revelation. It's our story of deliverance. It's our story of restoration. Our not only is our relationship restored, but our family is restored.
Yes.
And the story is told from both of our perspectives. So it's help and hope for marriage restoration. The story of a prodigal returning home, not just returning home, but staying home. We've been restored for over 5 years. Our marriage is better now than it ever was before. The hardest part was when he first came home, but we made it through that. We've continued. We've moved. We've started a ministry. We work together 24/7. We have businesses, so we have withstood I do get to hang out with you every day. My king. He does it, and he does it big. So, Bent But Not Broken, you can go to our website, GeraldandYvette.com. Thank you, Angel, for buying the book. We really, really appreciate that. I saw that you already went off and bought the book. It's on our website. You can buy it as a gift for people. You probably know people who are in a similar situation, and you could sow a seed into their relationship and say, don't give up. You could sow a seed into people who are getting married, because even though they may not already have trouble, a lot of people have a need of deliverance, even though they're getting married. And this book will help them avoid some of the pitfalls we went through, because people have issues from growing up in broken homes, growing up around other people that are addicted, growing up from around people that are dealing with drugs or perversion. Those kinds of things are in people's bloodline. They get married and they don't even know how to deal with it. They don't know how to understand how to help someone through it. So thank you guys for ordering it. We really appreciate it. Thank you all that are going to be watching on YouTube, on Gerald and Yvette Ministries, our YouTube channel. We appreciate you. We're thankful that you are ordering it. We love that. We love that. We love that. I want you to have the book. I want you to be encouraged. We want you to be encouraged. Follow our ministry online. If you need counseling, I do counseling with women. Gerald does counseling with men, and we do counseling with couples. We've had restoration from couples we've counseled. We've had people get back together, get remarried, all kinds of things. It has been an amazing ride. One thing God did.
Come on, Lupe.
Oh, yep. You got to get your copy. You got to get your copy.
I can't wait for the movie.
The movie. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Keep speaking plays and movies. We've had that prophecy, and we believe and we trust God. So we want people to know our story, because we want them to have hope in their story.
Amen.
So we thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for going to our website. I probably, you know what? Those help meets that want to get back on in a little while, in about 10 minutes, I'll be doing a help meet tip periodically at 11 p.m. I do help meet tips. I get my sparkling juice and I evaluate how I'm doing as a help meet. And many of you follow the ministry, you know, I believe in I became a help meet that is suitable for him. The helpmeet that he needed then is not the helpmeet that he needs now, and I had to become suitable. So yes, I'm getting my sparkling juice ready. Oh Lord, ministry schools, Lord have mercy. Y'all keep prophesying. I'm gonna get my sparkling juice ready. Those of you that are helpmeets that want to get a tip, get your sparkling juice ready and meet me in about 10 minutes. I'm gonna be coming on, and we're gonna get a sip and tip going.
Amen.
So we want to remind you,
marriage works
if you work it. Get your copy of Bent But Not Broken on GeraldandYvette.com.
Have a great evening.